So pretty soon you are going to be looking at purchasing seeds to start your garden, whether you're going to start your seeds indoors or whether you're going to plant your seeds directly outside. And one thing that's going to really help with shopping is understanding your days to maturity, which is something you're going to see on your seed packages. So we're going to just talk a little bit about that and how to read this and use it to buy the best varieties for your growing season. So I've got 3 different varieties of cucumbers here, and I've got 50 days to maturity, 55 to 60 days to maturity, and 65 days to maturity. So what this means is from the time I stick the seed in the ground till it starts to produce fruit or produce the cucumbers is 50 days or up to 65 days for these particular ones. And this is important because if I think back to my growing zone and that I really only have like 90 days of really good growing time, I want to make sure that this is fairly short so that when it first starts producing fruit pretty early, and then I've got a lot of time to harvest from it over, the remaining month and a bit of my season. So this is something you're going to want to factor in. So one, understanding how much fruit it's potentially going to produce for you or when it should start producing fruit for you is really important. The other thing is, these are pretty short dates. So 55 to 65 is pretty short for a maturity in a plant for it to start to producing, which is fantastic. It means that I can start these guys a little bit early indoors just to get a jump on things and then have a harvest all summer long. But sometimes you're going to find that you have, say, tomatoes, for example, or peppers, where there's like 120 days to maturity on that particular plant. So from the time you put, the seed in the ground until it starts producing fruit is 120 days. Well, for me, 120 days is from like first frost to last frost, but that's not really the ideal time for me to be growing. And that means that if I were to stick it in the ground outside, the second frost was done, it would only potentially just start producing for me tomatoes right when I'm gonna hit frost, which is a complete waste, right? I'm gonna not be able to get anything from that plant. So when you see those kinds of things, it doesn't mean that you can't grow that, but you're gonna need to start those seeds inside. You're gonna need to get a jump on the season by starting seeds indoors, in your house somewhere, or you're gonna just buy starter plants from greenhouses in the springtime. They already did all that work for you, and then you just buy it already, maybe at like 60 days, stick it in the ground, and you still got that jump and you've got that whole season. So days to maturity is really important. If you're looking at a whole bunch of seed packets and you're wondering, okay, this one looks pretty and that one looks pretty, which one do I buy? Tune into days to maturity first, and that'll help you understand the potential for you to have success with it. I've done this many times. I didn't understand this in the beginning of my gardening journey, and I would pick this thing that had this really lovely color on it. I thought this was gonna look really fun in the garden because, that's how I used to buy seeds, was like shiny syndrome or whatever. And I would get really disappointed because it was not made for my growing zone, my unique space, and nothing would ever come of it. And I always thought that that meant that I was a failure as a gardener because I couldn't get this plant to produce for me. But in actual fact, it's just that particular variety. It just needed longer than what my growing zone was able to provide for it. So this is step 1, so that you don't buy something, you get the shiny seed packet syndrome and you buy it and then all of a sudden it doesn't work out for you and you're wondering what that might be. It could potentially be that it's just too long for your season, or you didn't start it indoors, or so on and so forth. So that is step 1. And I just want to make sure that I've covered everything here. Oh yes, the one other thing that's really exciting about understanding days to maturity is you might be able to fit in like 2 plantings of something within a season. So radish are a really great example. Radish mature in like sometimes 20 days, which is really short, like 20 days from the time you stick that seed in the ground till the time you could be harvesting and eating it. And so you could plant like radish, for example. I plant like 3, sometimes 4 times in my season, successively planting. So, maybe I only have this much space to actually dedicate to radish, but I can plant it 3 or 4 times, which is is really exciting. It means I get a lot of harvest out of that. So those are things that you can kind of factor in as well as you start to get more advanced in your gardening and realizing, okay, well, this cucumber is 50 days, and I could factor in, well, cucumber is probably not a good example because it's going to keep producing for you, but let's say kohlrabi, for example, because I've got these guys hanging out here somewhere. So kohlrabi are a very funky vegetable. They're in the brassicas, and they're a one-time thing. They're not going to continuously produce for you. So they're going to produce these big bulbs, these beautiful, delicious, crispy vegetables that you sprinkle a little bit of salt on, but they only do it once. And these guys are, what are they, 55 to 60 days. So, and these guys are a cool weather vegetable as well. So I could potentially plant out kohlrabi twice in my season and maximize my space more so because of that. So these are things that you're gonna be able to kind of plan out and design your garden a little bit more so once you start to actually see what that days to maturity means. So file that away in your gardening notes as sort of things to watch for when you do start shopping for your seeds, and we'll see you in the next video.